Real quick, I don't know if you have anything else you want to talk about, but just real quick, since we've mentioned RosterMania kind of in passing at this point, while looking at the standings real quick, if I was to break it down, obviously, like I said earlier, I would put like Surge like below Ultra and Minnesota in terms of like making roster changes, but like just looking at the standings real quick, I think, in my opinion, FaZe, Optic, London, Boston probably aren't making any changes. Uh, I would be very surprised if any of those teams make changes.
Yeah.
LAG, inevitably they have to make a quote unquote change or a decision.
Yeah.
I don't know how you want to categorize that. Then after that, we have LA Thieves. They're in the camp of potentially making a change. We've got Florida and Seattle in the camp of they could make a change but probably won't. And then Ultra Minnesota like joining LAT in the potential change camp, and then New York and Paris kind of like, like they could make a
Maybe.
change, but probably won't. So yeah, I'd say, would you agree with those like group breakdowns?
Yeah, so I would say that Toronto is probably the most likely team to make a change. Just like they have Hixie as their substitute, I wouldn't be, and they have two good academy teams. We should mention that there was the Challengers event this weekend, and both of I believe they have a North American and a European academy team, the Ultra do, and I'm pretty sure that both of them placed top six at the event, or top four,
Top
whatever.
four. Yeah.
So top four. The top four teams in that challenge event qualified for the Pro Am Classic, which is to take place in like a month or so. I don't know the exact date, but both of those academy teams end up qualifying. So there are a lot of really interesting options if Toronto ends up, making a roster change and they want to stay within the Ultra family, so to speak. So I do think that Toronto is the most likely to make a change. I would say that. Minnesota is probably the next most likely because they're in the same boat as Toronto, that they stuck with the roster that they had from last season because they finished on a really strong note and things just aren't working out at this moment. Like you've had a few months and dozens of matches to kind of evaluate in Vanguard, in addition to the time that they had last season. So I think Minnesota are also pretty likely to make a roster change just based on logic, not any feeling of like reports or anything. I just think like logically it makes sense that Minnesota would make a change. I do think that Paris is probably the next most likely just because they're at the very bottom and it's getting to the point like you're running out of time to even get into the top eight. Like they're only 50 points behind, but that's 5 matches. They've won two. Like it's not real likely that they win 5 matches to finish the season. So like they kind of need to make a change, maybe a two-person change again, just to kind of mix things up and see. Like Temp is obviously their best player, like I don't think there's much doubt about that, but like other than him, like there's nobody that's truly safe in my mind. So I do think that of the 12 CDL teams, Paris is probably like the third or fourth most likely team to make a change. um the Thieves are very interesting, and I do think that they probably will make a change. It's it's like the optic situation last year where when they were struggling, I was kind of like, okay, like you make that change, but like, what is that change going to look like? Are you really going to get anybody better? I think it would be funny if Temp ended up back in LAT. I mean, he's obviously boys with Kenny and stuff, but and he's playing very well. I just don't know how the roles fit, and I think that's a problem that happens with Kenny's teams because he's very versatile. So like teams are very like they like him. Like they're like, all right, you're gonna run a sub. All right, you're gonna run a flex. All right, you're gonna run main AR. Like that's like he's so good at everything. So I think that is kind of an issue sometimes because they think they can do whatever, but at the end of the day, like he's best in what he's best at. Like you just kind of have to figure that out. But I do think that they probably will make a roster change, but I'm not sure what exactly that entails. I wouldn't consider whatever LAG does unless they trade someone. Like I don't consider that a roster change if they bring back Gunless or I guess it could be a roster change if they say like we're permanently going with Spart. But either way, like I'm interested to see what they do, and I hope that somebody gets traded and they're able to play in the CDL immediately. Other than that, I'm not sure if there are really any roster changes coming down the pipeline. New York is interesting. I think that they're better in hardpoint with Paul X, but I think the 3 match win streak was not a fluke, but just like they played 3 pretty bad teams like 3 underperforming teams at that time, and that's kind of how it worked out. Like I don't think it was very surprising that they went 0-2 at the major, especially because they played FaZe in the first round. Like that's bad luck, and LAT are like I think I even mentioned in the last podcast, LAT are a decent hard point team, and a good one at their best. So like if LAT even plays remotely well, then it's going to be really difficult for New York to win that, and New York didn't win that. So I'm interested to see if the subliners end up making a roster change to try to complete like a 2-team move, or if they move Clayster. I don't know where he would end up because it's very difficult for an AR player. There aren't many options at this point because everybody seems to have their main AR. But again, pretty interesting situation. Seattle could make a change, I guess, but I'm in the same boat as you. Like, just let it ride out. Like, this team is interesting, and they're able to win matches against some top teams. You beat the 2 best teams in the league. You've beaten FaZe, I think, twice if you include the Kickoff Classic, once if you don't, and you just beat Optic in this one, in this major. So probably no change. Florida, I think they probably should make a change, but like they just finished 4th, so that's kind of delays the inevitable in my opinion. Like that's just something that happens sometimes where a team does really well and they're like, well, we got to stick it out. Like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't feel like it'll work, and I don't like. If your goal is to win a championship, I don't think this team has it. So you should try to improve your roster to the point that they can win a championship. So I would say Florida is out on this one. Florida is probably not going to make a change, but that's just my opinion. And everybody else, like, there's no reason to make a change, even with London's bad performance. Like, you're not going to make that. You're not going to switch out anybody on that roster when you're third in the league and probably still the 3rd best team. Like you're not just like there because like you had a few fluky wins. Like no, you're probably the 3rd or 4th best team in the league. Probably stick with that roster. So that is my opinion on the whole roster mania. Or maybe there really won't be any roster mania. Maybe there'll be like 1 or 2 and we'll just kind of move on.
Yep. You see what Trem said in chat?
No, I will look at it now.
He said when you were talking about Florida, he said they should sign Havoc, and that's why I was laughing hysterically.
I mean, maybe. I don't know who like improves them. I do think that Dave Patty is like the odd man out, unfortunately, because Vivid has a like. There's no like if they get rid of Vivid, like what are we doing here? Like the role makes sense for him in that roster. They probably just need like another flex. Like they need more like a sub flex, like someone that is more accustomed to like I think. I do believe that Ease is still their sub. Um, I just don't know what happens like with this
I don't think
roster.
they do anything because like even because you're saying that
Yeah,
they're like roster construction wise, like you can't get rid of Vivid because he's really the only one true sub you have.
yeah,
Um, they're not getting rid of Awakening because he's basically like the franchise player in my eyes. I feel like he's really good friends with Willett. I think he was like playing with Willett, who is FaZe's coach um, before he made the transition to coaching, and then um, obviously like they decided to go with Willett as the head coach over Ricky Atura heading into the season. I thought Atura was a pretty good coach, but like just um, based on me like just presuming that relationship between like Awakening and Willett, it would make sense like they're not moving him.
yeah,
Skies has literally been on Florida for the past 3 years, so I don't think he's really going anywhere. And then Dave Patty is the rookie pickup for them heading into the season, and he's performed pretty well, especially
yeah.
statistically. So, despite like roster construction and role questions and all that stuff, I don't see them making a change right now either.
Yeah, I don't see them making a change, but I do think that they like if there was something that they did need, it would probably just be like a glue guy. They need like a Nikki D like in that roster, not specifically Nikki D unless they just want to hard counter Atlanta, but like in the general sense of like they just need a glue guy. They need someone that is willing to do the dirty work because they have incredible slaying power, and like Vivid is like, you know, this incredible like fast SMG player, like in the same vein as Abizi. So like it, you know, every team is essentially building their roster like in the way that Optic and FaZe built their roster essentially, and that's just how it is. Like I don't, maybe like Search is like they need a really good Search player, so like maybe Havoc is the guy. I don't know, like I really don't, and I think that's the most exciting thing about Roster Mania. A lot of times is like you have no idea who's like the perfect pickup. Like nobody would have expected Spart to be like a great sub for LAG, but that's how it works out. And I think we'll have to wait and see, and we'll all be on Twitter waiting for these moments.
I will say though, I would be incredibly surprised if Havoc actually
Yeah.
was picked up by Florida just because of the past, uh, the history and what's happened in the past between Florida and Havoc.